what's important to understand about this dimension of yourself and this dimension of myself and this dimension of reality itself is that there's nothing happening there. And that's the whole point. There's really nothing there's nothing happening there, and nothing ever happened there. That in this deepest dimension of reality, this deepest dimension of the self, of yourself and myself, and the deepest dimension of reality itself, is a place, or a no place, or a dimension, or a domain where there's no time, there's no space, there's no history, nothing ever happened. This place exists before creation, it's before birth and before creation. Before existence, prior to existence, that's what is. Some theorists believe that the creative process at a universal level, the level of the universe itself, is cyclical. Of course, nobody actually knows for sure, but some theorists and physicists believe that as the universe bursts into being, it will one day collapse into itself and disappear, and then emerge once again. And so there are many people who have an understanding that the creative process is cyclical. But of course, that's a theory. Nobody really knows. It's not part of my own conviction for certain philosophical reasons, which I'll explain at another time. But what I want everybody to know now and to be aware of is the fact that in this deepest dimension of the self and the deepest dimension of reality itself, which we're equating with that primordial empty void from which the entire creative process sprang forth 14 billion years ago, nothing's happening, and that's the main thing that you all need to know. So when we're spending time in this perennial practice of meditation, which human beings have been engaging in for around 3,000 years. Before about 3,000 years ago, human beings didn't know about this dimension of their own self, and they didn't know about this dimension of reality itself, but around 3,000 years ago, it was discovered. But what's important for all of you to know is that when you awaken to this part of yourself, when you discover this part of yourself and this deepest dimension of reality itself, you'll realize there's nothing happening there and nothing ever happened there. And that's what's important to know, that there's nothing happening there and nothing ever happened there. And that's the whole point. So as I think I've been explaining, at least a little bit, it's because nothing ever happened there and nothing is happening there, that for those of us who have been born and have entered the stream of time and are very much identified with being born, and are very much identified with entering into the stream of time, that birth process is burdensome, because it compels us to accumulate history. And as I was trying to explain a little bit yesterday, from the perspective of the traditional Enlightenment position, the birth process and the ensuing and the life process that ensues from that is very burdensome, because you accumulate experience, and you accumulate obligations, and you accumulate karma. There's so much that you have to do. There's so much you have to do. There's so much you have to be responsible for. And it just goes on and on. That's what the traditional enlightenment position is. So, and life, life is hard. Life is hard. Harder for some people than it is for others, but we can say that life is hard. So there's so much happening in our lives which obligates us to be responsible. So when you awaken to this deepest part of yourself that's never been born and never entered the stream of time, you experience freedom from all of that. You experience freedom from the burden of existence. And that's not a small thing. You experience freedom from the burden of existence. You also experience freedom from history. So you experience freedom from your own personal history. You experience freedom from all of the problems that you and your culture are facing today. So therefore, it's only in awakening to the deepest part of your own self and the deepest part of reality, that part of yourself that's never been born and never entered the stream of time, that is this deepest ground of being where there's no time and no form and no history and nothing ever happened, which relates back to this primordial empty void from which the entire creative universe burst forth. It's only when you awaken to that deepest part of yourself, the deepest part of reality itself, that you will experience freedom from suffering. That's the idea.